Welcome to Tony at 12. I'm Tony LeBlanc, and today I'm in conversation with Ronnie Cairnduff BEM, and we're talking about Alderney Week 2021. Ronnie, good to see you. Thanks for your time.
And you, Tony, and you.
I don't know. Of course, 2020 just about made it, didn't it?
Well, it did. I mean, the plans were always there, and there was a plan A and a plan B, and the plan A was a very big one as usual, but plan B was always going to be the slightly lower one, subject to regulation. We just kept an eye on the regulations as they changed throughout the period. And thankfully, not quite at the last moment, but thankfully everything eased up, and we worked with Dr. Brink's department, and everything was going to be absolutely tickety-boo. So away we went.
That's good. Now, a lot of our viewers probably don't know much about Alderney Week. So first of all, can you explain the background post-World War II?
Well, it used to be called the Alderney Cattle Show. And in fact, in my archives of the history, I've got a program that goes back to 1895. And that was called the Raiduna Fete. And there's all sorts of things in this beautiful little program that I have here. And then after the war in 1948, that's really when it all started as Alderney Week. But of course, in the very early days, they had a huge committee. In fact, there were probably more people on the committee than actually came to see it. But and again, what I've done, I've gone through the history of how Alderney Week started and getting some of the personnel behind it. Now, in the early days, that's been very difficult to actually find it. But when we start to get into the sort of the late 50s and so on, it becomes clearer. So this committee ran for a very long time. And then round about in the early 60s, Ray Parkin took over. Mm-hmm. And that was only going to be for, a year or so. And he ended up doing 27 years. Not quite as long as me, but there we go.
Yeah, but of course, Ray, I suppose, sort of looked at it from a different perspective and said, well, it's not going to be a cattle show anymore. Let's have real entertainment.
Well, yeah, and it went from, very small events into more grander events. So when race started, which in fact was about 68, if I remember, I then appeared on the scene in 72, and he and I just absolutely clicked. And away we went, and it became, he's a showman, I'm a showman, and, the thing worked out well. And away we went. But of course, in those days, I wasn't living here. I was coming backwards and forwards. And then I took over totally in 2005, I think it was, and did 10 years on the trot. But of course, in the early years that I was doing it, I was still resident on the mainland and coming over here for sort of a 3-month period through the summer, which I was able to do. But of course, then the workload was very much harder because there wasn't all that time. Whereas now, when I'm resident on the island, it's easier to put things together,
When you're not playing golf.
Playing golf, yes.
So it's over 40 years that you've been involved with it, which is quite something, isn't it, really, when you think about it? And you came back on the scene, what, last year or the year before?
No, it was last year. We were looking for a new team, and we, obviously went through social media to find a new team, and it just wasn't forthcoming. So I came out of retirement, and thankfully my whole team at previous came out of retirement as well. Alona and Nigel and Lee, and we brought on board Donald Hughes, and then Samantha came on board to look after all the kids side of things. So we're already prepping for this year. So
yeah. It is a bit of a concern, though, Ronnie, isn't it, that not just Alderney Week, but a lot of the clubs and societies over here are still, our sort of age group running them. And the younger generation doesn't seem to be able to take up the baton. Now, I don't know whether that's economic. I think it is in a lot of cases. They, obviously working hard to make enough money to keep the homes going and this sort of thing. but it's a worry.
Well, it is, but you're absolutely right. The key thing is the time, and a lot of people just don't have the time to put in the commitment which you need, and certainly things like Alderney, the planning of that is months prior to it. So a lot of people, obviously, as you rightly say, are earning a living. They can't afford the time to prep. And then when it comes to the big events like Alderney Week or any of the big festivals, you've got to commit at least, 2 weeks of your time, full time during and particularly in the week itself, So a lot of people can't take that time off work, and so it's difficult. And us oldies, of course, we're retired. We're time rich, so
you're just going to have to go on.
Well,
I mean, you'll go. I don't know how old Ray was when he packed it up, but you're going to have to exceed his age, presumably. I don't know.
I think this year I will have exceeded his age.
Oh, you will have. So you're now into.
Yeah. Well, I was 75 last month, so but I took the view while I've still got the health and still enjoy doing it. I'll just do it,
Yeah.
So, but I mean, for the longer term, it would be great to have a new team, younger people, all that sort of stuff. But again, it's the workload, it's the the planning and all of that sort of stuff. And of course, it's grown and grown to a major event these days.
Yeah. Can you give us a rough idea, Ronnie, of the actual cost of Alderney Week in terms of bringing people over, feeding, everything else?
Well, it depends on a lot of things in terms of who you bring over and all that sort of stuff. Now, when I was running it, we tended to keep it as much on island as possible. But even so, with all the various costs with marquees, most of which we own ourselves, but it would average out about anything between 50 and 60,000 quid to stage the whole thing. So it needs a huge amount of sponsorship and donations and all of that sort of stuff. And again, you've got to look at the economics of it all and how that's going to work. Particularly anything to do with sales of the bar in particular. So it's just one of those things we have to keep raising money for,
But on the plus side, it does make a major contribution to the Alderney economy, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question of that. I mean, some of the retailers have told me that apart from the Christmas week, Alderney Week is their biggest income producing activity. So yeah, it's a huge boost right across the whole island, because particularly you get the second homeowners coming as well. And last year they weren't able to come, and we're hoping this year they will. So that boosts the economy. The builders and all that. When these people come over, need work done to their houses, all this sort of stuff. So it all sort of drifts along, and everybody sort of wins over it.
Yeah. And of course, a lot of people will come over for a fortnight. They'll do a week before or a week after Alderney Week. So it's not just those 7 or 8 days that count. It's the additional ones each side, as it were.
You're absolutely right. In fact, some people have actually asked, could we not make it an Alderney fortnight? Absolutely not.
obviously out to finish you off, Ronnie. Totally.
Yes, we are rather tired at the end of the week, So
we've already touched on the effects of the pandemic in 2020, but what was good was that the Guernsey Director of Public Health, Dr. Brink, came over, and so gave you a good endorsement.
Well, she came over at my invitation, and she took it up, and ended up, as we know, on the Miss Alderney float, and she became a Miss Alderney for the day.
yeah, which is good. Obviously, assuming that things do open up for Alderney Week in terms of people coming over from the UK, the reduced flights with Alderney are a bit of a concern, because in the heyday you'd have 14 Trilander flights operating on the Saturday as Alderney Week started. And looking on the Alderney website, they only show 2 for the 31st of July, which are fully booked. Do you think you can get them to up that at all?
Well, I must say, you're absolutely right in terms of the schedules at the moment. But when it comes to it, Alderney always seem to, come up trumps. They put on extra flights where they can. I think their problem is one of logistics and pilots and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, Alderney do their best to help out where they can, and I'm sure they'll do the same this year.
Yeah.
There will be flights put on, I'm sure of it.
I mean, if it were possible for them to come up with a slightly cheaper fare, just take people down from Southampton to Guernsey in the bigger plane and just run the Dornier as a shuttle.
Well, I mean, again, that's down to their logistics and all the rest of it. But you're right. That to me would be a very, very good promotion from their perspective. A big plane coming out of Southampton full to the brim, and then, like you say, just shuttle it over from Guernsey. Yeah, that's a possibility.
So we've put ourselves up for the ideas department, shall we?
Yeah.
Now, Ronnie, I want to know what the bill of fare for 2021 is going to be. So you've got your daily diary there. All things presumably are provisional.
Well, they are indeed. I mean, one of the things we have to consider all the time are the tides, because a lot of it, of the events we do, particularly anything with the Harbour Day, has to be with the right tide and the sandcastle competition. So all those old regulars will still be there. The Daft Raft race. We're just working out the days at the moment of when these are going to happen. So we sit with the tide tables, all that sort of stuff, and then work out where these events are going to go. But what I can tell you is that we'll be back to normal in terms of size. It's going to be as big as ever. I'll be bringing back man-powered flight, and there's a couple of new events which haven't been done before, which we're just looking at. So it's already building up very, very nicely. And of course, there's the mini gala, which we always have.
We come on to that in a minute.
Right.
So essentially, there are activities on the first Saturday and Sunday, but it's the Monday with the cavalcade that
we actually
starting point. Tell us about that, Ronnie.
Well, we actually start on Cavalcade Day, which of course is the bank holiday in Alderney, but it's not elsewhere, but it is here. So that's traditionally when Alderney Week has started. Now, prior to that, on the Saturday is the Rock the Rock concert, where we share our facilities with Rock the Rock, because they raise a lot of money for cancer relief. So they've got a big lineup of bands for the Saturday. Then the Wildlife Trust will be running the street market on the Sunday. So that takes care of the start of that weekend. And then the Monday is our cavalcade. Now, what we encourage people to do is to build as many floats as we can. And this year, we've changed the rules a little bit in that every major float will have a cash prize. So that is so that if you've spent money on your float, at least you're going to get something back. And they will be very good prices, cash prizes, as well as all the cups and all that. And then the procession takes off, starts off at the top of town, as you know. And unfortunately, it's unlikely we'll have the blowers to lead the procession.
Yeah.
They were not able to come last year, and we have the same problem this year because of the numbers within the band. Yeah. And although the band are about 30 strong, the contingency of the whole lot is about 50. Yeah. So flights are a problem, accommodation is a problem. So it's unlikely we'll have them back this year.
Which is a shame.
Well, it's a great shame.
But, there you go. I think for the benefit of some of the viewers that don't know anything about Alderney Week, the Alderney Blowers are the Redbridge brass band, is that right? Well,
it's a combination of a number of brass bands. They all play in various bands on the mainland, particularly in the south of England. And when they come here, they're all called the Alderney Blowers. And they're top professional musicians. And they've been coming for 32 years. and they've been a huge asset to Alderney Week. But it's one of those things where, again, logistics are a problem, and we just have to, it's very unfortunate. But if we got hold of a big sponsor, because to bring them here is very, very expensive. So if it was a company out there that wanted to throw a few thousand quid into the kitty, we would certainly look at that, So, but getting back to Cavalcade, that was traditionally the day that all the locals in the island would appear on the buttes, and that's where all the activities take place. So. And over the years, we have learned that the more canvas you have, the better it is, particularly if it rains, because we've had situations where the heavens have opened, and within minutes, everybody has gone. So that's why people sort of think, "Oh my goodness, look at all these marquees," and they're there for that very reason. That if it's raining, there's cover for everybody, and we try and keep people there.
I can remember a case where Alderney Week and the Rock Trust, I think the Rock Trust had the use of the marquee because you kept the facility going for the week, where the band stayed in the tent and everybody else was evacuated outside, but the band stayed on.
Well, that was a very, very, very difficult decision to make, but safety was the thing.
The key to it.
And we're having something like 40-50 mile an hour winds, and I had to make a decision to stop the concert, and a lot of people were very unhappy. But when you saw the damage afterwards,
and
when you see all the big lighting rigs and everything in the main marquee, and if that were to tumble down, I mean, it would have been horrendous, absolutely horrendous. But the band decided
they'd go on.
They're all Liverpool guys. They said, "Oh, no,
absolutely." It was the swinging blue jeans. The swinging blue
everybody
jeans.
Everybody stood outside the marquee and watched. They played on, and but the winds died down, and the concert resumed again. But again, you see that the health and safety is very, very important with all these big projects, and we have to run risk assessments for everything that we do. And obviously, we're properly insured and that sort of. But we don't want any accidents or people to get hurt. So we do as everything properly.
So with the cavalcade, one of the great things about Alderney is that you, within reason, do what you like, and the march from Jackie Main's yard goes the wrong way down the one-way street. And then does a right into Victoria Street and goes the wrong way down Victoria Street. So it sort of immediately casts this spell on us all, whereby things can be circumvented when required. But
it's a stunning scene, when you stand at the bottom of Victoria Street, you see all these floats, and the colourful parade is just absolutely astonishing. It's amazing.
And of course, you used to have Miss Guernsey as well as Miss Alderney and attendants, and Miss Jersey in the past.
Well, we used to have all the misses from the various islands, but we stopped that a while ago. Again, that's logistics. People having to take time off and all that sort of stuff. But we're always up for new ideas. And of course, you're talking there about the Miss Jersey, Miss Guernsey. Our Miss Alderney last year wasn't able to be held because of the pandemic, and so that's why we had a whole trailer full of Miss past misses. And I think we had 18 in
really
total.
That's great.
But this year we have got it planned. It's a bit later than usual. That'll be in July, and that's going to be taking place at the moorings. So there'll be a big disco. And what we're also planning to do this year, to take a bit of pressure off our Miss Alderney's family, is that we're going to be building a generic Miss Alderney float.
All right,
so
that'd be good.
They don't have the pressure then, because there's not very much time before Alderney Week starts. It's only about 3 weeks or something. So we'll prepare all that for them.
Okay. Taking then the calendar on from Cavalcade Day on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you can sort of, we've got to talk about the gala, which presumably is Wednesday.
The gala will be the Wednesday night, as usual.
Okay.
These days, we now call it the mini gala, because the workload that used to go into the big ones, and those shows would last 2, maybe 2.5 hours, you know.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of huge props. So we've scaled that down a bit, but nevertheless, that's a highlight of the week, one of the highlights of the week, I should say.
Still do lots of rehearsing.
Oh, well, you know, the paint might maybe dry for an hour or two before, and that's it. But you see, that's the whole point of it. It's the spontaneity is what we try and get. And it's not like when we do the theatre group, when we do all the big shows. I mean, we rehearse those and rehearse those and rehearse those.
Yeah.
We've got 2 coming up in a couple of weeks, and you know, we've been rehearsing that already. But with Gala Night, the whole thing is spontaneous, and you know, when things go wrong, that's when people just roar their heads off. You know?
I can give you an example. Many years ago, they did a Victorian theme, and I was asked to play the part of Prince Albert. And I actually grew the old side whiskers and what have you. And Charlotte Newton was Queen Victoria.
You did indeed, yeah.
Plan was.
And I was Brunel at the time.
That's right. The plan was we would row round. Let me see the harbour. You know, one end right round to the other end of the quay, and we had all these oarsmen in white with boaters and everything else. And when we got round to the point where we were going to disembark, they stood up and they'd all got blue stripes on their bottoms. And the paint hadn't dried.
I remember that. Oh, there were lots of.
And you know, I mean, that's another great example. I've lost the picture, Ronnie. That's another great example of you know, the sort of spontaneity that you get. You know, really good from that point of view. So we've talked about Daft Raft Race and the man-powered flight and the sandcastles, all subject, of course, to tides, and something that you'll be able to work out over the next few weeks. That does bring us then eventually round to Saturday, doesn't it?
Yes, and of course the torchlight procession is very, very special. Now, there are problems this year with fireworks because the pandemic has virtually killed the firework industry in terms of production and all that sort of stuff. But we're working hard to make sure, we'll have all the torches that we'll need. And as you know, that's a spectacular procession. And you know, in some ways, it's sort of medieval, isn't it? You know.
Oh, totally, yeah. It's a bit like I was going to say, it's a bit like Lewis in Sussex, where they have the torchlight procession they have isn't so much Guy Fawkes, but it's to celebrate the martyrs that presumably were burned at the stake. So yeah, it is important, the torchlight procession. Now, the other question that I have to ask you, Ronnie, is the Wild Rover still around? And will
I'm
he
afraid
be performing?
it is. It is indeed. Yes, this year, Ronnie and Friends will be there on the full stage on our own with no big bands or anything like that.
Right. So it's all down to you.
It's all down to me and all the friends I'll have up there singing.
And perhaps some whiskey in the jar?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Oh, yes. I will have my Irish band there.
Now, just to conclude, Ronnie, is there anything that we can say to the viewers in terms of trying to gain support? You know,
well, yes. If anybody wishes to volunteer, just make contact with us. Our website, alderneyweek.com, and if you're here and you want to help, we need lots of volunteers, which we always get, and they are brilliant. So yes, everybody can get involved. What we try and do is make sure that you're not working very long. So we try and keep everything down to 1 hour in terms of volunteers' work, you know.
Yeah, so volunteers still get you know, are able to participate in the thing.
Exactly, that's what we try and do.
Now, what about sponsorship? Anyone watching that's got some spare money?
Absolutely, donate. Yeah.
And so we look forward to everything starting, you know, as ever.
Indeed.
And that's
obviously we've announced the theme, Alderney Adventures, and that means absolutely everything that you can dream of, you know, from the forts to the beaches to, you know, Indiana Jones, to anything to do with adventure.
Yeah, yeah. So that sounds pretty good to me. Just repeat the website.
It's alderneyweek.com.
Yeah, simple as that.
Very simple.
Yeah, well, that's good. Well, I know it's a little bit early, but we did think we should do a bit of a warm up, Ronnie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you
So,
very much.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks very much for coming on the show. And
Delight.
no doubt you will keep us up to date. And can I just take this opportunity of thanking one of your colleagues, Ilona Sohn-Sands, BEM, who is a wonderful lady in terms of helping us promote Tony at 12, and it is much appreciated. Indeed. And we'll find out whether or not she watched it all by seeing.
Okay, Tony, lovely to speak to you.
Take care, mate. All the best.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.